The Drexer didn't conquer worlds. They wiped them out. Every broadcast that sounded their approach ended the same way. Run, they verived. Whole civilizations vanished in a single night. No talks, no pity. Just fire from above and ash where cities once stood. And for ages, the galaxy stood idle. The Council of 11, the greatest of the Quadrant's alien powers, chose survival instead of defiance. Evacuate and withdraw, they declared. Preserve the records. Endure until storm fades, but the storm never faded. It only spread. The Drexer were savage insectoid fiends armed with advanced machines and nothing but hunger for control. They tore through 3 sectors in just 4 galactic cycles, and none, not even the hardened warrior castes, had slowed their advance. That was when rumors began to spread about a warship from a forgotten race. A vessel forged for a single-purpose destruction. Humanity had been gone for generations. Officially, they were branded unstable primitives with a dangerous obsession for war. Unofficially, they were dreaded. It was whispered they'd been cast out of the Galactic Accord for refusing to disarm. They called it protection. The Council called it insanity. Humans didn't just fight, they reveled in it. And so, mankind slipped from galactic memory until the Battle of Kier 4. Kier was a modest trade hub, nothing remarkable, yet strategically vital. When the Drexer descended, the Council didn't even attempt to intervene. The world was already lost. But that night, the heavens shifted. Council surveillance drones recorded everything. The Drexer mothership, vast as a drifting moon, loomed over the planet, its cannons swelling with pre-fire energy. Below, civilians fled, rushing for cover. Then sensors stuttered for armament. Then again, and suddenly, a ping. Unknown vessel detected. No registry, no accord seal, nothing until it revealed itself. Long, black, silent. Its frame carved through space like a blade. No crests, no ID pulses, only a single name carved into scarred metal plating. HSS Vengeance. The Drexer Leviathan paused, perhaps wary. Then it armed its weapons. The human ship didn't hesitate. It fired a single round, nothing like a cord ordnance. Something raw, older, dense, blistering, with a force that seemed to rumble through bone, even across vacuum. Second of strike outlawed by treaties, sealed away in forgotten war doctrines. The Drexer shields ruptured. Their defenses fractured like shattered crystal. And then, impossibly, they retreated. For the first time in the Chronicles, the Drexer ran. The feeds spread in an instant. Whispers turned to cries. Find the humans. We need them. If they wield ships like this. But humans didn't answer hails, at least not kindly. The Vengeance spoke no words. No signal, no explanation. It slipped back into shadow. The Drexer regrouped. They struck harder at Goran Prime, trying to drown their shame. Another world gone. Yet something had shifted. Fear, the Drexer had never feared. But they feared that vessel. And what the Council failed to grasp, what no one knew, was that the Vengeance was not solitary. It was the first. Humanity was watching. They had been watching. And now they were returning. The Drexer had never known defeat, certainly not from a species deemed extinct or irrelevant. Yet after Kier 4, their hive stirred. Their tacticians, grotesque minds afloat in nutrient brine, no longer dismissed mankind. They began preparing. To the Drexer, fear was no feeling. It was a signal across the hive. A pulse warning, unknown hazard. And the unknown could not be controlled. That made it deadly. The Overmind, stationed in orbit above the husk of Goran Prime, recalled all scouts, drones, and war beasts to Sector 12, where Kier 4 had burned. Orders were blunt. Hunt the human craft. Study. Seize. Dismantle. Even the Reavers were summoned, those engineered Drexer, killers bred for a single purpose, hunting anomalies. But the humans were already gone. Beyond the borders of accord charts, the HSS Vengeance waited in the shadow of a fractured moon. Inside was nothing like accordsons of flowing glass and soothing glow. The Vengeance was iron struts, battle wounds, and flickering bulbs. The air reeked faintly of scorched metal and dried blood, and at its helm sat Commander Linvale. She was no envoy, no politician. She was forged for war, carved from Earth's final line of fighters before it fell silent. Her eyes weary, her voice gravel from stale air and scars too deep to name, but her hands steady as death. She watched the recordings from Kirel 4 again, not out of pride, but calculation. The shot that pierced the Drexer mothership shield had been from their prototype rail core. They only had 2 rounds left. Any word from Earth? Sheesked. Her tactical officer, Jin, looked up from the console. Still radio silence. HQ's not acknowledging council transmissions. No change, Vale snorted. Of course not. Typical. Double quotes, that was the thing about humanity. When the council kicked them out decades ago, humans didn't beg to stay. They vanished, shut down all beacons, left no trace. They had made a pact. If the galaxy didn't want them, then the galaxy could survive without them. But the galaxy hadn't survived. The council's peace treaties were worthless than the stars they floated near. Every species had disarmed, grown soft, traded their weapons for philosophy. Humanity didn't, not completely. Vale stood and walked toward the command deck window. Outside, the stars shimmered cold and distant. Somewhere out there, Earth still spun, still watched. But even she didn't know exactly where, and she wasn't heading back, not yet. Commander, Jin said suddenly, urgency in his voice. We've got a ping. Multiple ships dropping from warp. Drexer signature. Vale's jaw clenched out. How many? 14. No mother ship, but 1 Reaver class. Heavy recon. She smirked. They're sending dogs to sniff us out. Orders. Let them sniff. The Vengeance didn't cloak this time. It stayed visible like bait in open space. The Drexer warships approached. Weapons charged. One of them pulsed a warning signal in standard code. Stand down. Prepare for capture. Vale leaned over the comms. Jin, play the message. He blinked. What message? The one I recorded after Kier 4. He nodded, tapped a few keys. A distorted human voice crackled across the battlefield, angry, tired, and clear. To the Drexer overmind, Yao wanted to conquer. You should have checked under the bed before waking the monster. You want war? You just found it. And then she cut comms. Fire, Vale said. The Vengeance lit up. Rail core around number 2 screamed through the black and smashed straight through the Drexer Reaver ship, splitting it in half like a melon under a hammer. The shockwave tore 2 others apart. The remaining ships scattered, but Vala wasn't chasing. She didn't have the ammo for that. She wanted them to run. Let them report back. Let the Overmind know. Humans weren't just back. They were hunting. The Drexer didn't retreat often. It wasn't part of their nature, but when the fractured remains of their recon fleet limped back to the Overmind, something inside the hive shifted again. This time more urgently, more chaotically. The humans were real. They were dangerous and worse, they were unpredictable. The Overmind issued an emergency override across its fleet clusters. It paused the next wave of planetary assaults, and instead focused its full computational force on one question. Where had the humans gone all these years? That answer wasn't in any council archives. It wasn't on any trader route logs or alliance charts. Humanity hadn't just disappeared. They'd buried themselves under myths and fear. Even the council didn't know what had really happened. They assumed humanity had fractured, maybe gone extinct after their exile. But the truth was hidden on a scorched little planet at the edge of an unmarked system, Earth. Beneath layers of dust and silence, Earth had evolved in secret. After being exiled by the Council, human leaders made a brutal decision. They cut all communication, burned the satellites, shut down deep space relays. They didn't want to be found. Not until they were ready. And ready they had become. The surface of Earth was a wasteland on purpose. A decoy. A messaggero, any curious observer, that humanity had collapsed. But buried deep beneath old continents and caverns reinforced with neutronium steel was the cradle, a subterranean complex that spanned half a hemisphere. Here, humanity thrived. They trained, researched, built weapons not even the Council could imagine. They engineered warships like the Vengeance. Few, yes, but lethal. And most importantly, they remembered. Every Drexer attack across the galaxy had been monitored, cataloged, analyzed. Humanity had never truly disappeared. They'd watched from the shadows, building weapons while the rest of the galaxy disarmed itself in the name of peace. They knew this day would come. The day when someone like the Drexer would see weakness and come for everything. And no, that day was here. Inside the cradle, the highest-ranking officials of Earth's hidden military stood around a glowing table, staring at a simulation of the galaxy. Red zones, Drexer-occupied territories, were spreading like a virus. But now, blinking in the middle of the black was a small blue dot. The Vengeance. Commander Vale made a contact. General Reeves said he was an old warhawk with cybernetic lungs, and half a face made of war-grade chrome. Successful engagement. She sent the message. And the Council asked Minister Tari, head of strategic diplomacy, though diplomacy hadn't been useful for a long time. Still silent, Reeves said. Or too scared to admit they need us. A pause. Then Tari leaned forward, voice low. It's time, isn't it? Reeves nodded. Yes, no more shadows. No more hiding. The Drexer picked a fight with the wrong species. Activate the fleet. At once, alarms rang softly throughout the cradle. Hangars the size of cities roared to life. Massive warships long thought, scrapped or destroyed POW. Peacekeepers. They were Avengers. Meanwhile, Commander Vale aboard the Vengeance received a priority encrypted signal. She read the blinking words and felt her stomach twist, not in fear, but anticipation. You're not alone anymore. Fleet en route. She leaned back in her chair, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Let's see how the Drexer handle round 2. But out in the stars, the Drexer weren't idle. The Overmind had already shifted its strategies. No more scouts, no more probing. It would bring its full strength. All hives, all ships. It would warm Earth before the humans could gather. Because deep inside the Drexer collective, a fear they'd never known had taken root. The kind of fear that only humans could inspire. Space had never been quiet, but now it screamed. Sensors across the galaxy lit up as the Drexer made their move. Thousands of warships emerged from void rifts. Wormhole-like tears in space they carved open using stolen energy from dying stars. These weren't scout fleets anymore. These were extermination hives. Their target wasn't a Council world. It wasn't a trade hub. It was Earth. The Overmind had learned that humanity was some forgotten species clinging to ancient tech. They had planned, evolved, and trained in isolation. And now that the HS Vengeance had exposed them again, the Hivemen had come to one conclusion. Eliminate the source before it spreads. The Drexer swarm approached like a tidal wave of living steel, unfailing, unrelenting, and impossibly vast. But they were already too late. Earth's moon shifted. It wasn't a moon. Not anymore. It hadn't been since the humans turned it into Luna Base 1, a disguised orbital defense fortress. Its surface split open, revealing colossal weapon batteries. Entire continents of automated missile silos rotated into opposition. From deep beneath Earth's surface, dozens of warships launched, hidden for decades, cloaked, waiting for this moment. They weren't as big as the Drexer hive ships. They didn't need to be. They were human ships. Each one a design to punch holes in celestial bodies. Each one piloted by people who grew up training for this. Commander Vale, now flanked by 2 more human cruisers, received her combat orders. Delay the swarm until Earth's main fleet arrives. Great, she muttered, tapping the cracked console. 3 ships against a space plague. Better odds than usual, Jin grinned. The Vengeance turned toward the incoming Drexer advance. With its railcores now reloaded and weapon capacitors at full charge, it dove straight into the black. The first Drexer ship to engage them, a razor-winged Harvester class, never even fired. The Vengeance's railcores burned a molten hole straight through its thorax. 2 more coming up from starboard, Jin shouted. Let him, Valor replied. The 2 human support ships, the HS Emberclaw and HSS Warden, peeled off and cut clean through the enemy's flank. Human ship design prioritized forward F-facing, brute force and brutal maneuverability. They didn't dance in space like council vessels. They brawled. They bullied. The Drexer weren't used to being hit this hard. One of their hive ships, bristling with cannonous turrets and acidic breachers, launched a full assault on Earth's atmosphere, but it never made it. From Luna Base 1, Heaven's Spear activated. A prototype orbital rail weapon. It was capable of firing a solid tungsten rod at half the speed of light. It only needed 1 shot. The spear tore through space, struck the hive ship dead center, and didn't stop. It kept going, ripping through 2 more Drexer vessels before vanishing into deep space. The result, 3 destroyed ships in silence across the swarm's neural network. A sudden pause, a gap, animation, confusion, fear. Down below, on Earth's command deck, General Reeves watched the battle unfold. Every instinct in his war-wired brain screamed, "Press the advantage. Launch full fleet," he ordered. "All units, no more screts. We go loud, across Earth and its orbit." 100 warships jumped into battle. No cloaks, no stealth. Their arrival was thunder in space. Fire rained from the stars. Human ships didn't glide. They charged. Inside the swarm, something faltered. The Drexer overmind recalculated. Humanity wasn't isolated anymore. They weren't fractured. They were unified, disciplined, and worst of all, they knew how to win. It sent out Adistra's ping across its network, a signal meant only for the ancient Drexer were cast. Being so violent, they'd been locked away, even from their own hive, for fear they'd devour the swarm itself. The Overmind didn't care anymore. It would rather risk its own collapse than lose to the humans. But humans weren't finished, either. The HS Retribution, Earth's largest warship, jumped into orbit. It was the size of a small city and dark as a funeral ship, with 1 word glowing across its armored side: Nevergain. Commander. Vale watched it appear on her scopes and whispered, Well, looks like the old bastards brought the big guns. The Drexer had come to destroy Earth, but Earth wasn't a planet anymore. It was a weapon. They came from the void between stars. The ancient ones. The Drexer's last gamble. The Warcast. Even the Overmind trembled when it awakened them. Not out of fear. Fear was a luxury it didn't possess, but out of cold hive-level logic. These were not ships. These were living weapons bred during the Drexer's earliest conquests, back when the galaxy still burned fresh with theses of their first victims. They had no names, no language, just a command: destroy. While most Drexer vessels resembled jagged metal fused with biotech, the Warcast ships were something else entirely, alive in every sense. Each one was a colossal biomechanical beast the size of moons wrapped in muscle-bone armor and void ink skin that shimmered with unnatural color. Eyes pulsed along their hulls. Limbs clawed at space itself as they moved. Inside them lived the oldest, most violent instincts of the swarm: and know they were coming for Earth. On the command deck of the HSS Retribution, General Reeves watched the long-range scans and didn't speak for a long time. Around him, officers shifted nervously. Even hardened veterans stared at their readings with pale faces. "Are we looking at a planet?" one finally asked. "No," Reeves said flatly. "That's not a planet. That's a monster." Across the fleet, battle readiness went to max. Shield matrices charged, cannonaries locked into target mode, and all human ships repositioned in a massive arc around Earth's orbit. The plan was simple. Hold Feline. But no one underestimated what was coming. Commander Vale, now docked temporarily in the Retribution, stood shoulder to shoulder with Reeves, watching the visual feed as one of Thuorcast broke through a starfield like a serpent from hell. It didn't warp. It tripped through space, jaws first, shrieking across frequencies not meant for any mind to hear. "Sir," Jin called through, "comes from the Vengeance, still in orbit. The Drexer just dropped one of their own ships." The Warcast devoured it. Vale hissed through her teeth. "Even the swarm can't control them." "They don't want to," Reeves muttered. "They just want Earth broken before the humans unite the galaxy." And that's exactly what had started happening. Across Council space, alien species that once turned their backs on humanity were watching Earth's defense in disbelief. Some sent messages, others sent ships. Nothing coordinated yet, but something was shifting. The galaxy was starting to rally, but Earth couldn't wait. Not with those things inbound. As the first Warcast entity neared orbit, Earth's planetary defense grid fired everything. Rail guns, plasma bargages, EMP lances, but nothing slowed it. The creature twisted midspace, absorbing energy through layered void flesh and firing back. Not missiles, not lasers. It roared. A deep subspace growth that ruptured 2 human ships from the inside. The Vengeance, still holding in lower orbit, took a near hit. Hull integrity dropped to 41%. Inside, sparks flew as consolessa overloaded. Jin was thrown against the wall, blood streaking his cheek. Vala gritted her teeth and slammed her fist on the panel. "Get us back in the air." Another shriek from the Warcast, and all of Earth's orbital towers split in half, metal and fire raining down towards the Pacific. Then came the Retribution's moment. "Target locked," the gunnery officer called out. Reeves gave the word. The Retribution's main cannon fired its Judgment Core, a super-dense fusion shell encased in quantum foam. Their coil alone cracked part of its aft spine, but the result, impact. Thuorcast shrieked again, but this time in pain. Real pain. The shell tore through 3 of its limbs and embedded itself deep into its torso, where it began to detonate internally. The creature thrashed, pulling debris and even smaller Drexer ships into its gravity. But it didn't die. It just turned right toward Earth, right toward the Retribution. It was coming. And this time it wasn't roaring. It was charging. Vale stepped forward. "Get me back on the Vengeance. We've still got the last rail core around." Reeves looked at her. "That thing's a nightmare. You won't survive that run." She smirked. "Wasn't planning to." He paused, then gave a stiff nod. "Make it count." The Vengeance limped through low orbit, its hull scorched. One engine flickering like a dying star. Every system groaned as Commander Vale climbed back onto the bridge, blood trailing down her forearm, eyes locked on the growing shadow ahead. The Warcast entity was so massive now it blocked the sun. Every sensor screamed warnings. It wasn't just alive. It was angry. Chunks of torn Drexer ship still floated around its limbs like trophies from the swarm it devoured. Earth's fleet kept firing, hammering it with every weapon in range. But it kept coming. Flesh regenerating, bones shifting mid-flight, eyes along its body blinking in patterns no one could decipher. It was headed straight for the Retribution. "Where are we on Railcorp power?" Vale asked, dropping into her calm. She exhaled slowly. Then we need to be ready. That was the new conversation. Not can humanity defend itself, but who will lead the galaxy into war? Across Council space, unrest was boiling. Species once loyal to the Council had begun sending envoys to Earth instead. Trade offers, military alliances. The Bratch warriors even proposed joint combat training, admitting publicly that humans had outmatched them. One by one, the Council's credibility was crumbling. And in its place, humanity was rising, not as conquerors, but as the last reliable wall between survival and extinction. At Earth Command, the debates began. Some leaders wanted to seize the moment, break the Council completely, and form a human-led galactic coalition. Others warned of repeating the mistakes of the old empires. Vale was summoned to the War Council 3 days after she woke. Her body still ached. Her left arm was wrapped in a neurobandage, and every step made her ribs scream. But when she entered that chamber, everyone stood. Even Reeves. She didn't waste time. "We're not politicians," she said. "We don't need medals, and we're not here to wave flags. We're still at war." A screen lit up behind her, showing the latest scans from deep space. 3 more orchestratings. All moving, all hungry. The Drexer aren't finished. They're learning, evolving. The Overmind won't make the same mistake twice. The room went quiet. She stepped forward, voice harder now. If the galaxy wants peace, it's going to have to fight for it. Not with treaties, not with silence, but with action. Earth stood alone and won. Imagine what we could do together. Reeves stepped in beside her. The question now isn't who leads, it's who's still willing to fight. Messages from alien factions flooded the comms that day. Not just messages of support, but enlistment requests. Pilots from Teti, strategists from the Oran, Event Council defectors were offering intelligence. For the first time, humanity wasn't the outsider. They were the center. But somewhere far beyond charted space, in the Drexer's hidden hive worlds, the Overmind had begun creating something worse than the Warcast, something bigger. Something meant to erase not just Earth, but memory of it. And it was already moving. The Overmind had one final card to play. In the cold, ancient void beyond mapped space, where suns died without ever having been named, it stirred awake its deepest nightmare, the only weapon it had sealed away, even from itself. It was called the Hollow Star, not a ship, not a beast, not even a warcast. It was a planet-sized hive built in secret across millennia, wrapped in living Drexer flesh and armor, fused with the remains of consumed civilizations. Inside it, billions of dormant soldiers pulsed beneath blackened crust, while its core burned with a neural network of 100 government fragments, stitched together into a singular thinking god. The Hollow Star didn't move like a fleet. It devoured systems, and it was heading straight for Earth. Back on Earth, fewer alarms echoed across every continent for the first time since the first Exodus. The Retribution and what remained of the fleet were already at half strength from the Warcast battle. And yet, the new threat was orders of magnitude greater. But this time, humanity wasn't alone. In Earth orbit, a new kind of fleet had assembled. The banner didn't bear Earth's flag. It didn't carry the Council's either. It bore a symbol newly minted, a white star split with a red line, the sign of unified resistance. Humans, Brook, a dozen other species. Once fractured, now stood as one. No more hiding. No more waiting. At the center of the formation, Commander Vale stood once again on a rebuilt bridge of the Vengeance 2, her old crew at her side. The original ship had burned. She hadn't, and now she was leading the entire damn galaxy. She opened comms to the Allied fleet. "This is Commander Vale. You've seen what they did. Planets burned, people erased. This is our last stand, but it's not about Earth. It's about the idea that no species gets to be erased without a fight. We draw the line here. We hold the line now. Make them regret thinking we'd stay silent. The hollow star emerged from dark space on the edge of Sol's system, eclipsing the distant light of Neptune. Even from millions of kilometers away, its presence was overwhelming. Planet-sized tendrils reached outward. Lightning crawled along its crust like veins. It spoke into every mind it touched. Alien, human, synthetic, with a single echoing command: submit. But no one did. The Resistance hit it with everything. Wave after wave of coordinated fire. From the Retribution's judgment cores to plasma spears to alien EMP webs that crackled across its shield skin. The hollow star responded by opening its maw. Ships vanished. Dozens in a blink. Entire squadrons were swallowed whole, but they kept fighting. Vale led a Breck formation directly toward the core. "This thing isn't alive," she told her crew. "It's not even a planet. It's a tomb. Let's bury it." Inside the hollow star, the Overmind's collective thoughts began to fracture. It hadn't expected resistance on this scale, not from them. The humans, the irrational ones, the stubborn ones, the ones who when told to die stood up and said, "No." And then like a pulse through space itself, came Earth's final move. A prototype weapon long held in reserve, a fail-safe, a gift from a dying scientist who once warned the Council they'd regret ignoring the primitive species. The Soul Lance, a beam weapon powered by the sun's own corona. It fired straight through the Vengeance 2 opening, created by Vale's attack squad. The beam tore into the hollow star's neural core. The feedback screamed through space as Overmind fragments began collapsing in on themselves. The beast wailed, not in audio, not in sound, but in gravitational distortions that bent light and space around it. And then it imploded. The hollow star caved in, crumpling like a dying sun, vanishing into a black M of its own making. Silence followed, true silence. No warcast, no swarm, no voice in their minds demanding surrender. Just a galaxy looking at Earth, now the last wall between them and oblivion, and realizing what had just happened. Commander Vale, bloodied, exhausted, barely holding her sulfuprite, stared out the viewport of the Vengeance 2. "It's over," Jin whispered. She didn't respond right away, just stared into the dark. "No," she finally said. "It's just beginning." Because peace wasn't the absence of war. It was the promise that if war ever came again, humanity would be waiting.